Okay, so I made all these bowls for you and this so you could improve your glaze combinations. And now what I'm hearing is, well, how do you squirt the squirts in there? What do you use? Identify all the squirts in all the bowls, which I'm not going to do. It's overwhelming. But I will demonstrate and give you an idea of what I do. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glaze a bowl in plum and celadon. And I'm going to glaze it 1/3, 2/3. And I want the overlap to be off center. And I want the overlap to be about as wide as my finger. So, I'm going to start in the celadon, which has already been stirred. Okay, so that's the celadon and the plum will be over there. I actually am a little further in here than I'd like to be. The glaze that was low in the bucket was hard to see what I was doing. So one of the things that you can do is you can take a pencil and draw the line where you want the overlap to be. And it helps if when you're doing this, like on the first dip, you make sure that it is vertical, not cockeyed when you put it in. And you look at your line here and you want to glaze this glaze up to there if you want 2/3 of that color. Or if you're going to go the other way and do 1/3, you want to make sure that the first dip goes to here. Okay, so that's the celadon. Now we're going to go over and do the plum. So I'm going to hold it so that I can see the back of the bowl. I'm going to make sure that it's straight, otherwise it's going to be like a big overlap here and a tiny overlap there. So I get it horizontal and vertical, and then I look at the back of the piece and I go in and out, shake, shake, and you see the overlap is that wide, which is what I'm looking for. So now the piece is glazed. And when you do this, you don't have to patch on the lip because you don't damage the glaze. So now I sponge the bottom, and there's my overlap. A little thinner on that side than that side. This is a little wider than it should be, but that part is done. Now, on virtually every piece, I use copper red and oil spot. Yeah. So now we're going to talk about the squirt bottles. There's copper red, gold, titanium, twilight, which is new, chun, and copper red. I almost always use copper red and oil spot. Those are my two favorites. Next, it kind of depends on what glazes are on the pot, but I frequently use some of this chun, and I do only a few spots of twilight and gold, and titanium really looks good on top of chun. So let's say you decided to use primarily chun and copper red, then you would maybe want to use titanium in conjunction with them, and an accent of maybe this or this. Okay, so here's my squirting technique. Put the bowl on the table, pick the first glaze, which is going to be copper red in this case. I shake it up and make sure that it's mixed. I put a little drop on the table to make sure it's not plugged. Do not waste glaze. There is about 150 bucks worth of glaze in every bucket. You will be expelled if you waste glaze. Okay, so I want to get the glaze on the inside of the pot, not on the outside. I'm going to squirt this way, and you can see that it tends to run. Okay, so I'm going to let it run that way, and if I want more over here, I'm going to hold the bowl like this, get some up here, and just like wait a minute so that when I right the bowl, that stays there. I want this fluid glaze up here so it sheets down, and then I come in from the other side with oil spot and do exactly the same thing. Okay, so you can see it's running down over that. Get a little extra up here. I'm going to back that up and make it kind of flow toward the lip. Okay. And I don't want it to go over. Okay, so now I've got two glazes on there and the oil spot is running back down. Do not set this in a dirty spot. I already cleaned it, and if I'm careful, whoops, I'm careful when I set this thing down, the bottom will stay clean, and all I need to do is inspect it to confirm that it's clean, and it's done. So those are two glazes, and if anything, I want more of one than the other. So I've got more copper red than oil spot, but it could be reversed. Now I'm going to do some chun. Okay, so the chun I'm going to squirt more randomly. And on the other side, I'm going to do some titanium. Coming down into the middle. And then I'm going to do an accent of gold, I think, on this. And here. Okay, so that's plugged. But on the side of this container there is supposed to be a paper clip hanging, which can be used to clean out this nozzle, but I'm using a needle tool, which should work equally well. Now I just want a drop, so if I just turn this over, you can see I get some splatters. I don't need to squeeze it all. I just need to wiggle it a little bit, and then I got a couple of drops. And I think I'm going to put just a dab of Twilight over here. One, two, three, four, five, coming down from the other side. So I think I used 5 of these little squirt bottles, plus these 2 glazes. And you want a progression of mostly one glaze, a little bit less of the other one, and so on down the line with these squirts. And that's pretty much what I do. If it's a bowl, you have issues with flow going down the side, and you want to avoid getting a horizontal run in the bottom, which sometimes happens, and you can kind of see it here, where it pooled and it ran that way. I try not to do that. I do try to have lines that are squiggly and uneven. And I don't put anything on the outside, especially if it's a low piece. Now, let's just say I was glazing something pretty tall. Like this piece. Okay, on this piece, because it's so tall, what I could have done was taken a squirt bottle and put a bead going around the pot. But that's tricky because that stuff flows pretty quickly. And if I try to put a bead on this because it's glazed and not porous, this is probably going to run pretty badly. But I hold it vertically and I turn it and I lay a bead like that on the overlap. When the pot is bisqued, that's likely to stay there. But as you can see when I write it, it runs, but this is not porous. And you can't do this on anything that is low. It has to be really tall. You can't put any of these glazes on the outside of a pot that's short. So here I have a little bit coming down. That is tolerable because, you know, it's a fairly, you can see how tall that is. If I was worried about this running off, I would clean it off with either a fettling knife or a needle tool, like so, when it was dry. Okay, So I've got most of it off. Now, if I think I've got too much of the other glaze off, then I can go back and patch that. But I think that's okay. So that's what it looks like. End of video.